communicate. How much better your marriage gets when you take the resentment out and you're like, okay, I really, you know what? Once a month at least, I need you to bring me flowers. I need you to take this garbage out without me asking because it makes me feel loved by you.
Yeah.
And the guys are going to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, your husband really does love you.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know how to love you.
Yeah.
So, show him.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a mystery to everybody. There's a lot of times first, second marriages, even like it's all a mystery. It's like, how do we work together for the rest of our lives, hopefully?
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of 8's journey from jail to joy. A Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges, spirituality, ADHD, or maybe just family, travel, and logistics. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison, with your mystery meat sandwich.
Well, greetings, compadres. Greetings. For your mystery meat sandwich today, a quote from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. God could and would if he were sought. So, to me, what this quote says is that if I am seeking a higher power, or if I'm seeking a spiritual experience in my life, basically, I've already found it because the evidence is all around me if I'm looking for it. Some days, admittedly, I'm not looking for it. I forget to look for it. I have some negative colored glasses on, you name it. But if I'm looking for it, it's there. And one of my favorite Christmas movies, being that we just have come off of the holiday season and into the new year, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Love Actually. And I may have already shared this before on this podcast, but I love this movie because at the beginning and at the end, you see footage filmed at Heathrow Airport. So it's like real footage. And you see people running to each other, embracing, meeting up again after not seeing them for whatever length of time. And the point is that if you stop and look around, you can find love, that love is actually all around us, is the idea. And I know for me, particularly, I found that to be true post-COVID. I saw so many beautiful examples, especially in recovery meetings, of people just so excited to see each other again. And what a blessing and what a gift we are to each other. And for as many times as we get caught up in the daily irritations or frustrations that we, think we have with some people, it's like, okay, let me try and see them through other glasses. God help me to see them differently, right? And to see them basically as God's kids. So anyway, on that note, for your chaplain's chat today, actually not on that note, I don't know why I said that. This has nothing to do with this, but it does, actually. It does link for sure, and you're going to see how. Because it is a greatest hits throwback day. So now these are episodes that I found while doing a digital cleanup with my son of my very first podcast that took place in a tiny house in the backyard of my old house. And the recording quality is super horrible. I started last month with Jesse Butterworth on criticizing criticism. You might want to check that one out. It's got so much great stuff in it. But anyway, the content of some of those early episodes there were just some real gems and rock stars and people who came back to that little house out there and recorded with me on a, not wonderful recording setup. And it just gave me all the warm, fuzzy feels to re-listen to some of those tracks. And so I have hand selected the best of the best, and only those ones made the cut. And I am so proud to present them to you in a greatest hits throwback series, which I will do periodically this year. So these solid gold hits are coming at you live today in 2023 at this moment, but they were originally recorded in, I'm going to guess it was 2018, maybe 2019, depending on the exact year. But the one I have selected for today, I don't know what to tell you. I am already feeling so much. I have like a craving of anticipation about this one. This podcast was recorded with my just lovely, beautifully hearted, gifted friend. She is an author, a cook, a television presence, speaker. She's an entrepreneur, and her name is Danielle Kartes. So, to bring you up to speed with Danielle, she is the author of multiple books. She's a regular on tons of amazing shows like The Rachel Ray Show, The Kelly Clarkson Show, The Today Show, and you'll have to check out her website. It's rusticjoyfulfood.com to see all of her many accolades, because it would take approximately 10 million years to read them all to you because there are so many. But most recently, she has published a book called You Were Always There, Notes and Recipes for Living a Life You Love. Who doesn't want that, right? So if you go on her website, you'll find a plentiful description of all of the things that she has going on. But when I re-listened to this episode as a candidate for the Throwback Greatest Hits series, what I loved so much is I got to basically relive all of the things, because this podcast has it all. It has like all the pillars of my podcast. And it was like, it's almost like this thing was a foreshadowing of what was to come here with Eternally Amy. So it's just very interesting. It's got spirituality. It's got finding joy. It's got marriage relationships. It's got losing all your money, rags to riches type thing. It's about starting over. It's about getting focused on simplicity, being willing to be open because you just never know it's around the corner. It's got writing books. It's got sorrow and joy can simultaneously exist. It's got comparison is the thief of joy. And if your chicken gets messed up, just throw it back in the oven and start over, girl. And stop trying to figure it out and just allow for God's Spirit in ways that will dumbfound and mystify you, right? So just basically allowing that. And you're right where you're supposed to be. It also has, sometimes God shows up for you in the form of friends or people or a bunch of clothes when your luggage has gone missing. Can I get a witness? Did anybody experience that this past holiday season? Missing luggage. I've been there. Please enjoy my chat circa, we think 2018, maybe 2019, not exactly sure. But the content of this thing is beautiful and timeless with Danielle Kartes.
Okay, welcome back to the A-Team Mom Podcast.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, so this is why I am so excited today. And I'm not going to cry, but...
Cry. I'm a crier. What if I cry?
Okay, well then you'll be in good company.
Okay, good.
I have Danielle Kartes from Rustic Joyful Food.
Yes.
And Danielle, okay, so first of all, just so you know, she's got a website. It's rusticjoyfulfood.com.
Yes.
And that same name for Instagram as well.
Yes, Rustic Joyful Food.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. What I want to say about Danielle is I heard her speak at school. She was kind and gracious enough to come to our school
You're so nice.
about a month ago or a month and a half ago and share her story with just a group of moms. And let me tell you, like, I was so moved by your authenticity, by your genuine heart, and by the way that things have gone for you in what you shared. And, you know, I just wanted the opportunity to, you know, have you on, and you've totally blessed me by saying yes and by coming here and by sharing your story, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to not even hog up any more time with my rambling, and I just want you to just launch in and just, if you don't mind, just kind of start.
Totally. So, like she said, my name is Danielle, and I'm thrilled to be with you guys. And I'm such a rambler. So I'm like, oh, I'll ramble, and then we have to back up and go to a different part.
Yep.
So my husband and I run a company called Rustic Joyful Food, and it's a boutique style photography company. So we take pictures for all kinds of clients, you know, from, you know, Yoplait to Dave's Killer Bread. We do all kinds of photography in our own home, in studio situations. I work on television, I write cookbooks, but our story is really unique in the fact that I never planned for this. And I think a lot of people set out with goals and dreams and all kinds of things like that. But about 10 years ago, my goals and dreams had nothing to do with any greater good. They all just had to do with me. Mm-hmm. And so we were newlyweds, my husband and I. We got married 12 years ago. And I wanted to have a restaurant. I thought, oh my gosh, I could have the best restaurant. And Mike and I had a rough go in the very beginning. And I was like, what's wrong? Like, it just kind of feels weird. We're not really meshing well. We're not getting along. Maybe I need to be home more. I was this makeup artist and I traveled all the time. And I thought, okay, I love to cook. Let's open a restaurant. And Mike's like, I don't think we should open a restaurant. I'm like, I will run it. It will be wonderful. So I decided to open a restaurant. We opened it on a shoestring budget for about $15,000. And people were floored. And all of our friends were like, are you looking to get a divorce? Like, you really want to run a restaurant? Like, do you know anything about restaurant work? And I'm like, well, I've worked in a couple restaurants and I enjoyed it. So it's like choose your own adventure. We opened up this restaurant and it ended up going crazy. Like, we did so good, and it was homemade pasta, and we hired incredible chefs, and I was learning so much, and there was lines out the door and people waiting for tables, and we had 15 little tables, and it was in the theater district in Tacoma. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have everything. This is amazing. I have this little empire. But my husband and I were just growing apart. So it took 2.5 years for us to decide, you know, we're just going to go our separate ways. I didn't even cry. I just wanted, like, to be away from him. He was selfish and mean and horrible, and I had all these adjectives to describe Mike and none to describe me. And I ended up being pregnant with Noah. And so I remember, just to be really honest, I remember reading that little pregnancy stick, and I came out in the living room and I told Mike, I'm really sorry because we have to figure it out. And Mike was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not moving out. We told our parents we're getting a divorce. And even to think of how selfish and small and basic my thought process was brings tears to my eyes here 12 years later. Like, I can't believe I was so small-minded that I didn't recognize any of Mike's good qualities even at that time. So Mike's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not moving out. I guess we're not getting a divorce. I guess we're going to have a family. And I'm like, okay. And so over the course of the next 7 months, I was on bed rest because I got preeclampsia. And the restaurant just slowly started to implode. We went from making, like, you know, $300,000 a year to, and within that 9 months, losing everything. Like, our employees were, you know, taking us, robbing us blind. They're just like, you know, people weren't invested. Like, you know how you own a restaurant, you're invested in it. Nobody else is invested in it when you're not there. So the cool thing about all of it is that I had no idea during that time how hard it was, and all the tears and all the uncertainty. I didn't have any idea that it was really setting me up. That God had this really incredible plan for our lives. And in the midst of experiencing hardship, we rarely think this is my setup. This is my learning time. This is the time when God's really stripping everything away. And when our dreams are broken, I like to say now that when I tell people about our books and stuff, they're like, how did you get into this? And I'm like, well, it's really a result of a broken dream. Things that I thought for myself that were never as important as the work that God had for me now. And now, rather than like, people wanting to know, I don't want anybody to know my name. I want everybody to know who Jesus is. I could care less if they ever recognized me, or if what I'm doing isn't important if they don't know how well loved they are in the Lord or how accepted they are in Christ. And I feel like women today need this desperately. Like, they need to know how much God loves them and how much bigger life is just outside of them. So I was pregnant with Noah, and I was so sick, and Mike was doing the best that he could to run the restaurant, and I was trying to keep this baby well. And shortly after Noah came, the restaurant closed. Mike had this giant sidewalk sale. We put it on Craigslist, and Mike said it was really surreal to see people just come in droves and taking even like the soap dispensers off the wall and offering you $5 for them. Like, the place was gutted within 2 to 3 hours, and he came home with $10,000 in his pocket. And we took it to the bank and turned it into a cashier's check to pay back taxes. And here we were with no business. That was my identity at the time. I thought this was me. This was my empire. And I had this brand new little baby. And being a parent is really hard, but it was so much easier than anything we were dealing with at the restaurant. And for the first time in our marriage, we were focused on somebody else and not us. And we were focused on this little miracle. And God used Noah to save us. He used Noah to get us outside of us. And it's funny because we were so much happier after Noah than we ever were with all that money. We were so much happier, like, how do I figure out how to apply for food stamps? But being together as a family like we should, having this brilliant little baby where everything he did, every babble, every coo, like, is he okay? I remember calling my mom like every couple of hours. I'm like, he did this. Is he all right? Like, just that worry about something that's not you. It actually feels very refreshing. And so I decided, I'll never cook again. There's no way. I almost lost my family. I almost destroyed my marriage for all my goals. Like, I'm a very driven person. And I thought, I'll just never cook again. So we lived on a steady diet of like ground turkey, steamed broccoli, and rice. Because it was like, I didn't have to think about it. Noah would like it. Mike ate it. It was like, whatever. I wasn't into creative cooking at all any longer. And it's funny because Noah was about 6 months old and we were super broke. I mean, like, ridiculously poor. And Mike was going to work. He was delivering bread. So he was driving an hour away, working in the middle of the night. And Noah needed to eat. And I remember going to the grocery store, and he was a formula baby. So I'm thinking, okay, I have to supplement things like rice cereal. I guess that's cheap. I can do that. And then I was looking at all the baby food pouches, and I was like, I wanted him to have organic food because I know it was better. And I was like, oh gosh, it's so it's like $2 or $3 for a tiny little jar, and he has to eat this 6 or 8 times a day. Like, I could never afford that. Yeah. Like, I can't do that. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll make him some food. I can roast up plums. It was during a time where it was like, oh, this baby food revolution. So even 8 years ago, people were like, you could make your own baby food. And before that, people weren't doing it.
Right.
So I started like baking sweet potatoes and scraping them out and smashing them up. And he really loved real food. And it was a fraction of the cost. And so I was cooking again. Like, that was me being creative. Before, it was like autopilot. This is what we eat for dinner. I can make you a sandwich for lunch. I'll have a bowl of cereal, fried egg. But this was like combinations. And it was like, ooh, and the books would say, now you put purple and yellow. And I'm like, I could get a green pepper. I could get a yellow pepper. And I was super excited. And Noah was so happy to eat. He was so excited. And I thought, oh my gosh, this just awoke something in me. Like, I do like to cook. And so I told Mike, I said, Noah wasn't yet a year old, and I said, I feel like I should just write a book. I want to write a book. And Mike's like, okay. And I didn't know anything about writing a book. I didn't know anything about writing, recipes for audience consumption. I just knew how to scribble things like your grandma did on a piece of paper, and then you knew how to do it on your own.
Sure.
So we called a friend of ours. His name is Jeff, and I said, hey, I want to write a book. I know you do stuff like this. You're a photographer for this sort of thing. And he's like, I can help you with this. Like, you just pay me what you can. And we had nothing. So I remember starting to write. We met in a coffee shop, and I had my little magazines with me, and I remember having like an Ina Garten cookbook and a Martha Stewart magazine. I'm like, well, I kind of like this and I kind of like that, and he's like, well, just put all that away because you're completely different from what you're showing me. He said, you just need to be yourself. And I'm like, well, how do you be yourself in a plate of food? Like, I didn't understand. I'm like, okay. So slowly we started planning shoots, and I just started writing down like the menus from the restaurant. And then I started sharing my story and what had happened to us and how God had brought us back together. And this was all so brand new. And I was thinking, okay, maybe is this what I'm supposed to do? So just kept plugging along and writing the book. And in the middle of the book, Jeff actually got leukemia. And so he wasn't able to finish shooting. And then my husband picked up a camera, and he was like, oh, okay, I've learned a lot from Jeff. And Jeff started to mentor Mike and show him how to do things. So Mike ended up finishing the photos in the book. And it was like this, it took 2.5 years to complete this book on our little budget. And I remember at one point, we were doing this roasted chicken, and it was going in the book, but it was going to also be our dinner because we didn't have any other food. So I remember being outside because I wanted that pretty golden light. So we moved our kitchen table outside, and Jeff is taking pictures, and there was flies landing on the chicken, and I was so devastated, and I was flustered, and Jeff didn't understand, and my husband was like, calm down, it's fine, like, we'll figure something out. And I remember just breaking down, feeling like, this is supposed to be our dinner, there's flies all over it, it's horrible. And I called my mom, and I said, I was, sobbing, telling her the story, and she said, crank your oven up to 450 degrees and stick the chicken back in.
Yeah.
And chicken's gonna kill everything. And then I just feel like that was this turning point for me, like, I just needed to stop. Like, I wanted everything to just be okay and be so perfect. And I was like, I guess we're just going to this is like the proverbial chicken of life. We're going to throw it back. We're going to throw it back into the oven and crank the heat up.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
So we ended up finishing the book, and I started sending it out to publishers, and nobody wanted it. And I'm like, but I did it. We self-published. We hired a designer, and an editor, and I'm literally I worked makeup at the same time, so I'm trying to pull extra shifts. I'm a full-time working mom. Mike is full-time working in the middle of the night. We were literally like, I would clean your bathrooms if I could. I would walk your dogs. I would watch your kids in the middle of the night. I would do any extra odd job because we just had no money. And I kept it sort of like secret at work. I mean, nobody knew we were busted broke. I was just working, and I had this little baby, and so at one point we had finished the book, nobody wanted it, and I thought, okay, maybe I was just supposed to write it for me. Maybe it was just supposed to be for me to heal. My parents bought it, a couple of friends online, and we'll just move on from there. And I was teaching a foundation class at the Bellevue Nordstrom, and there were these women in the front row, and they're like, your makeup is flawless, and we just love it. And I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. And so they came over after, she's laughing. They came up to me afterwards, and she said, my makeup artist canceled for Saturday. Could you please do my makeup? And I said, well, if I can find childcare, I can totally do your makeup. And so she was like, okay. And because I'm like, odd job, here I am. And I lived up north here in the Bellevue area. We lived out in Issaquah. And my mom was my only childcare because I didn't know anybody up here at the time that could watch my baby. So my mom lived down near Eatonville. So I remember waking up at like 4.
Side note, my parents are in Eatonville too. Hey!
Stop it!
No, for real.
We should carpool.
I know.
I literally go there every weekend. They live on Clear Lake.
Oh my gosh.
It's so fun.
Small world. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, no. I'm like, interject. I'm just rambling.
No, it's good.
Okay. So I ended up doing her makeup, and so, this is the fun part. I have to backtrack because I always forget little bits and pieces in the story. So she hands me her business card and said she was a buyer for Costco. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Danielle, this is your chance. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wrote a cookbook. And her eyes kind of go funny, and she's like, huh? Like, but you're a makeup artist. And I said, yes, I am a makeup artist. I'm an extremely good makeup artist. I'm also a wonderful cook. So she's like, okay. And I'm like, I promise, it's not a homeschool cookbook. There's nothing wrong with homeschool. Any mothers who are listening, homeschool's wonderful. But you know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
Like the slap together 3-ring binder. These are my family recipes. Yeah. That's not what I was, that's not it. I'm like, this isn't it. It's a hardcover. It's beautiful. We distribute through Ingram. Like I had everything set up because like I said, I have a lot of drive. Yeah. So I figure out how to do something and I do it the right way. Obviously not the right way. I just get it done. So she's like, okay, how about you just do my makeup? And I was like, okay. And she's like, maybe I can set you up with another. She was perfectly lovely. It wasn't like she was being rude. She was great. She was like, oh, okay. But there was some confusion there. So I ended up going, I did her makeup. She had an envelope, and it had a phone number in the envelope with my payment and a nice tip. Thank you very much, if you ever listen. So she gave me a great tip. And then I remember getting really excited. I'm like, okay, this is it. So Monday morning rolls around, and I go to call the number, and I was expecting a voicemail. I just wasn't expecting someone live to answer, and I don't know why. I still to this day don't know why that was my impression, that I would leave a message.
Yeah.
So a live person answered, and she was great. And she was like, hi, I've been expecting your call. And I was like, oh, yes, you have. This is my opportunity.
Here it is.
And she's like, and so before I could even really launch into what I was doing or what I was selling or anything about my book, she had this speech ready to tell me, we're really just not interested.
Oh.
And so my heart sunk, and I was like, oh, gosh, okay. So I just sort of kept talking, and I said, well, I work on King 5, and I do these cooking segments, because I had this whole side hustle going on.
Nice.
I was trying to schlep my book, and we were working for South Sound magazine at the time. So all these little opportunities started presenting themselves, and I just said, I can drop it off. I live in Issaquah. You're in Issaquah. I mean, it seems like it's meant to be.
Totally.
And she's like, I'm just going to stop you right there. We're just not interested. We're past the buying season. And she was lovely. She wasn't being rude. She wasn't being unkind. She was just being matter of fact. It was business. And so for the third time, I said, okay, look, this is the deal. Please let me just drop it off. This book is so important. It's for your demographic. So I just started rambling off all my, accolades and all my recognition and all my everything. Like, this is why you need to read this book. This is why Costco needs this book. So she was really quiet, and she said, okay, this is the deal. I want a 1-page summary about why Costco cares, because I gotta be very honest with you, Danielle, we don't.
Ouch.
And it wasn't a mean thing. It was like, this is business, and I'm sure you have a Grandma Knit cookbook, and I just don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure Costco gets thousands and thousands and thousands of submissions. So fast forward to 8 weeks later, I got an email that said, we love it. And I was just like, this is it. And we hosted sold out signing after sold out signing. And God just did something so big at that starting point. When we got into Costco, it was like people were hungry for this message. They were hungry to know what was going on with Rustic Joyful Food. And I just felt so blessed. And that was really what sort of launched our career. And being in Costco and just always first and foremost telling people what the Lord did, what God did. It changed everything. It wasn't like, I'm the best cook and these are my perfect recipes. That's great. And that's what a lot of people are out there doing.
Sure.
It was like, I'm a normal mother. I am cleaning people's toilets. I'm doing makeup and schlepping my cookbook that we wrote completely on my own. And I'm telling you how to make food that is messy and happy and will add to your life. And so during those years where it was really hard, God taught us how to have joy in the moment. And it didn't mean that we had the best kitchen. It didn't mean that I had beautiful marble countertops. I didn't drive a nice car. I lived in a small apartment. And the food that we were making during that time tasted better than any restaurant you could go to. We would have friends over, and they would literally be like licking their plates like, how did you make this? And I'm like, it's a roasted chicken, dude. Like, there are certain ways that you cook, utilizing the things that you have, where it's not, coated in 24 karat gold, and it's not, we didn't sing to the kaffir lime leaves in the middle of the night, and then we imported them. Like, that's not what makes food good. Great food is because you love well. And so it was we just started telling, I asked the Lord, because people started having me speak at their churches, and there was this disconnect in my heart and in my mind, like, well, Lord, how am I teaching people how to cook, but also giving women hope in this really hard time in their lives? And then it was just like, you just do. You stop figuring out how it melds together, and you just be you.
I love that.
And God that really changed the game for me. I feel like I was finally able to just exhale. And ever since then, I don't want to say that it's been effortless, because we work really hard, and just because it's turned out so well doesn't mean that it wasn't really tough to get here. I read a little thing the other day online, and it said something about don't be, you can't be jealous, or you can't be envious of somebody's winning years when you weren't there for their losing years.
So good.
And it's funny, I like to even flip-flop it, like the losing years in the world's eyes would have been my winning years, because God was just setting my heart up for, I didn't have the capacity to really walk fully in what I have today if I didn't go through that. I don't think I would nearly be as effective for the Lord, or as grateful, or as loving of a mother and a wife. I don't think, because this would mean nothing to me right now if I didn't have my family. My husband is my very best friend. I didn't touch on that very much. He is the most generous, gentle, incredible man, and I never would have known that if we didn't walk this fire together. And I was so longing for those dating years and the sparks, and I wanted it to be like lovey-dovey again. And I thought, oh my gosh, what we have now is like a bonfire compared to like the little kid's play toy that lights a fire. Do you know what I mean? God is so wanting to build a fire between you and your spouse. He wants that for you. The other stuff is child's play, the butterflies and all that stuff. Like, you date to have a healthy marriage. Yes, all that stuff is great. But when you really submit to the Lord and you realize that your partner is not there to make you happy, they're just an additive to your life.
Right.
It changes the game.
Big time.
Big time. Like, Mike isn't responsible for my happiness.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I have to figure out between me and God how to be happy, and then we can work on our marriage. And so I think that has really been a great thing for us to, like, I'm just me now. Like, I used to try and figure out, this is my makeup hat. I don't do makeup anymore. I'm past that, but I'm like, this is my mother hat. I can talk about these things. Well, now I get to talk about it all.
Yeah.
Like, this is all of who we are. And so slowly but surely over the last 7 years, we've built up this incredible business, and God's just opened doors. And it started with, I was able to start working on the Rachel Ray show and do appearances on that show. And that was incredible. And that's so fun. She's amazing. And then from there, I started working on the Hallmark Home and Family channel, and then the Pickler and Ben show. And in between that, we were able to write our second book after Milo came. And that's like a whole other story. It was funny. Milo came, my water broke 10 weeks before he was born. And so we were in the hospital with, broken water for 2 weeks. Then Milo came. I was very, very sick. And I remember being in intensive care because I went septic, which is crazy. Intensive
I just
care.
heard this and I was like, what?
Yeah. So, and this was still during like a super hard time. Mike kept his job. I mean, we didn't work together until just 1 year ago. So Mike still kept his job working in the middle of the night and doing photography on the side. And I promised him, like, I will work so hard that one day you do not have to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and go sling bread. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted something different for our family. And I remember being in the ICU, and they had just come in to take my blood. And I remember God saying, it's time to finish Generations. And I'm like, what? With what capacity? And I'm literally in my dark intensive care room, and they're coming in like every hour, and I was so sick. And I thought, Lord, how? And God used that book when I was writing about generations and how I grew up in this the familial idea of food, like where we came from, and generations before us working so hard so that we could have better. I mean, our grandparents were like working in fields so that we, you don't know that 80 years later, your legacy is still going by the way that our forefathers worked. And so that's what that whole book is about. And great stories of how I grew up and my grandmother and just making it work. And I thought, Lord, how am I supposed to do this? And it just happened. And I know a lot of people think you had a baby. And we brought Milo home. And I remember holding him and feeding him and then just working on this book through the night. Like, I was up anyways.
Right.
I'd pull my laptop out, or I'd work on my phone. I'd put him in a little boppy. And I remember how I had it like situated. I would kind of put a chair and then have him propped up on the boppy on the chair. I'd feed him, he'd sleep, and I would literally have my arm here, and I would just type with one hand. I would henpeck all over the keyboard and write the book and write the recipes. And I just felt like, this is it, Lord. This is okay. It's working. So we self-published that book. And I remember we went on a book tour January of 2018. And people were like, how did you do this? Like, you have this baby who's not well. I mean, Milo had lots of complications, and we were in and out of Seattle Children's. Man. And I thought, okay, I guess here we go. And I remember being in New York and we lost all of our luggage. And a girlfriend of mine actually paid for my new clothes.
Oh my gosh.
She was like, I want you to have new clothes for your stuff. And so I had all my new clothes and my luggage and everything that was important to me. And we lost it. Nobody stole it. We literally left it on the sidewalk and got in an Uber. Mike
dude.
Yeah. Left all of our belongings. All the baby clothes, all the everything. And I remember just feeling so defeated. I called the show and I was like, I don't have any clothes. And they're like, we'll send some stuff over. I had girlfriends Venmo me to buy toothbrushes in Manhattan. I mean, we literally had nothing. Then our maid, her name was Faustina, and I promised when I am a millionaire someday, I will find this woman and buy her a house. The whole maid's team, they got in and she said, I noticed you don't have any baby clothes. And she said, I don't want you to feel bad. I just noticed you don't have any baby clothes. And I said, we lost all of our luggage. And she said, I noticed you washing out a onesie. And I did. I was washing because Noah had like whatever was in his diaper bag. Yeah. Noah Milo. And I was just like trying to change it out. And I wasn't buying him new baby clothes in Manhattan. I just wasn't doing it.
Right.
So we're there for the Rachel Ray show and she said, okay, let me see what I can do. So I'd gone out to get our toothbrushes, get some toiletries, try and find pants. I was wearing like tights and a tank top and like a wrap for the flight. That's all I had. Didn't know toiletries. They gave us extra soap from downstairs. So we come back in to our room and there are literally multiple. She said, how long are you here for? And we're like, for 4 days. There was so many clothes and blankets.
Oh my gosh.
Everything. And it just said, God hasn't forgotten you. You just keep your chin up. Today's not a bad day. And I remember just breaking down thinking, we were right where we were supposed to be. So I'm like, let's go get a cup of coffee. So we go to get a cup of coffee and there's a man in front of us and he appears to be homeless. And you see that and your heart's touched, but you don't think much past that. You're like, okay, well, maybe I could do something, or maybe we'll buy his coffee. So he comes up and he has a handful of change and he picks out a sandwich out of the case, and we're at a Starbucks. And he says, I have $1.13 and I'm hungry. And the sandwiches are $5 or $6. And before anything could happen, the barista behind the counter says, oh, I got you. Don't worry about it. And then behind him, the gentleman says, what are you drinking today, brother? And he says, I only need a sandwich. I just have $1.13. He says, oh man, I got you. Move it along, baby. I'll keep you. Let me get you at the back of the line. Like, don't you even worry. And I had to step out of line because I was sobbing, and God was just like, hey, you know what? Sometimes all you have is $1.13, and you have to be able to put it on the counter and say, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And God is going to catch you every single time. That has been the most profound story for me because I feel like sometimes we don't have it all together.
Right.
And sometimes we have no plan and we're trying to figure it out, and there might not be food in your refrigerator or your cupboard, or your job might be bad, or your family might be sick, or you might be dealing or struggling with addiction and nobody knows. But God's like, you put your $1.13 on the counter, just whatever you have, and I am here for you. And so I feel like that story has really been able to carry me through so much in our life. And just knowing like this is where we are supposed to be, even if it's hard, even if we stumble, even if we don't do it all proper, we're right where we're supposed to be, learning what we need to learn. And I feel so grateful. And out of all of this, Rustic Joyful Food has become a brand that is about happiness today, where life is good right now, even when it's not. Right. Even in the midst of struggle, even in financial struggle and heartache and in marital struggles, you can find joy today, and you can make damn good food. You can make delicious out of meager portions, and God will be there for you. And so I think that's been our whole message, and it's just really began to take off. And this last September, we partnered with a publisher, and they're like, we want your message to go everywhere. So they're republishing our books. You can pre-order the first 2 on Amazon now.
Hey.
Yep, September 3rd is the release for My Heart's Table, which talks about our story. February is the release for Generations. which is about how I grew up. And then to put sort of like wrap a bow on this series, we're doing another book called Meant to Share, and that comes out in May, and that's about the community of food and how to share again, how to get with people and be vulnerable. Not in a weird way, not like here's all my baggage,
Right.
but in a way that's like let's commune again, because I feel like there's been this disconnect on how we actually eat together and bring food to people's houses. And it's just a really beautiful look at community and what it means to eat with people that you love, and or even people that you don't know. And so I feel like that book, it's this whole, over the last 7 or 8 years, it's just been this through line, and this book sort of caps off the series, and then we'll begin other series and things like that. But so these 3 books, My Heart's Table, Generations, and Meant to Share, are so special to my heart. And they're different from regular cookbooks because it's all loaded with stories. It's just, and the stories like the one they shared about the guy with the $13, and just, it's filled with hope and funny and laughter. And I don't know, I just, I feel like there's one point too, I go back and forth all over these little things. There's another story I wanted to share. I feel like somebody listening needs to hear this.
Yeah.
So I went to a women's conference, and there was this prominent speaker up there, and she was talking about how you need to find your tribe. You just find your tribe, ladies. And she shared this story about elephants, and how elephants, when one is hurting or one is sick, they all rally around that female elephant, and they protect her, and they make sure that nothing bad is going to happen, and they make sure that no predators can get to her. And so she really had this crowd of women just going crazy, like, find your tribe, where are your elephants? And everyone's like, yay! And then she's like, stand with your elephants. And so there's women just hugging, and on the outside that message seems great. It seems awesome, find your tribe. But the thing that was really profound, I was with a woman who I didn't know very well, and she was just recovering from colon cancer. And I didn't know her so well, and she stepped out during this. And so we're this group of women that we're with, who I wasn't close to any one of them. It was just like, hey, I've got this ticket, you want to come? And so we're exiting, and I remember sitting there thinking, this room is filled with broken women, and they're like, find people to help you. And sometimes it's really hard when you're broken and you're in a spot to build a friendship. It's difficult.
Sure.
Especially as an adult woman, it's lonely.
Yeah.
So I step out, and she's sobbing, and I remember I didn't know her so well, so I didn't go up to her, but she's telling another friend, where was my tribe? I literally just went through cancer, and I had nobody. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, we don't need a tribe of elephants when the Lion of Judah is right beside us in every single trial. Wow. You don't need a bunch of heifers surrounding you. When you have the king, you have a lion beside you.
Oh, good.
This is so important for God's women to hear and understand. Sometimes God brings you to a place of loneliness. God will bring you to a place where he has stripped everything away from you. And I've been in those lonely areas in that Kerith ravine where God has brought you and tucked you away because he loves you. Not because he's angry with you, not because you did anything wrong, but because he desires to be all and everything that you need. And so I think about this story often, and I told my girlfriend, I said, please tell her, forget the elephants, focus on the lions, focus on Jesus. And she said, wow, Danielle, I just felt that, because I was even thinking, like, during Milo, when I was so sick, I thought, Lord, where are my buddies at? God was refining my heart. I didn't need anybody during that time but the Lord. And so I want that takeaway for people who are going through that period of loneliness, or maybe they feel like they don't have that girlfriend that can pop over and clean their bathrooms when their kids are sick, or they're maybe not in that season, that you don't have to do anything to whoop up a friendship or to get that person that's going to be there for you. God is so capable of providing great friends if it's a desire of your heart, but you just got to know that you are never, ever alone. And there is a massive protector right next to you, beside you, holding you and carrying you through your trial.
It's so beautiful. And you know, what you just said just struck me so much, in that what we were just talking about was sort of like, sometimes when you're in that place of brokenness, it can be so surprising who your elephants are that surround you. You know? I mean, I experienced that just with my heart issue. Is that, you know, you just sometimes don't know. And they come out of the woodwork, and then...
And it's never who you'd expect.
Exactly.
You just have to allow it.
Yeah.
It's never... Because it's a lot of times, it's not your best friends.
Right.
It's people that you were like, who? And you gave me what? Because we've both experienced that, like, where people have surrounded you in a trial, and I feel like, oh my gosh, it wasn't who you expected. You just have to be open to the Lord, and that's that lion mentality.
Yeah.
Like, that's God saying, I've got you. I'm going to provide for you. It's just not going to come from where you think it should come from.
Right. And isn't that amazing? Because to me, that's like the whole mystery and the beauty of the entire thing. And
yeah.
You know, so much of, and I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm fine.
But just
I'm
like,
talking.
You know, so much of what you said and the strength and the beauty of your message is like finding purpose in that place of pain, where it's not sort of like, you know, I can't stand some of these things that are sort of like, you know, well, I used to be downtrodden, and
now I'm incredible.
Yeah, you know,
it's like, what about in it? What were you learning in it?
Right.
Yes.
Oh, it was just. And it was captivating for me to hear about you and Mike. And,
thank you.
You know, just how, I mean, I think that's what is so difficult today about marriage is walking through those. And
nobody wants you to feel like, nobody wants to talk about the hard stuff.
Right.
It's embarrassing.
Right. Yeah.
Even with your very best friends, like, nobody wants to say, I'm struggling in my marriage. I don't actually like my spouse any longer.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really difficult. And I think that once we stop focusing, when God really started showing me, Mike wasn't responsible for me. I think that even on a very,
I love that.
a deeper level, we all think that our husbands are responsible for our happiness. Like that, I hate that adage, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. But it's the truth. It's like, you got to keep mama happy and everything goes right. Well, you know what? Mama got to keep herself happy.
That's it.
Happiness can't come from a clean house. It can't come from a spouse that brought you flowers. And I mean, he needs to do some work, okay? He does. He needs to bring you flowers. But I'm saying your happiness can't be based, and then communicate. There are so many women like, did you tell him you need flowers?
Yeah.
Well, no, he should know. I get that. I love it. I get it. I have a man at home and it needs to be told certain things. But communicate. How much better your marriage gets when you take the resentment out and you're like, okay, you know what? Once a month at least, I need you to bring me flowers. I need you to take this garbage out without me asking, because it makes me feel loved by you.
Yeah.
And the guys are going to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, your husband really does love you.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know how to love you.
Yeah.
So, show him.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a mystery to everybody. There's a lot of times, first, second marriages, even, like, it's all a mystery. It's like, how do we work together for the rest of our lives, hopefully? Like,
yeah. And I think, you know, I mean, I love that so much, because I know for me, and I mean, I'm going to have to obviously have you back, because we have
so much to talk about.
Billion topics that I could just talk for like 7 years with you.
I love you.
But you know, I grew up in a Christian home, and when I got married, that was it was kind of this old school mentality of like, you know, here I am, I'm the stay-at-home mom, which is all great, you know, and wonderful. And that, you know, my happiness, whether or not I recognized it, I don't think I had the self-awareness at that time to realize that.
A lot of us don't.
It was directly connected to my husband.
Yes.
And thank God we sort of grew out of that.
Yes.
And we grew out of that by going through hard times, by the way. It wasn't like I woke up and I was like,
I am enlightened.
Amazingly spiritual, mature person.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, but I found that to be true for myself. And that to me has been like this gold nugget in my heart, is that, and it's true as a parent for me too. My happiness cannot be founded in my kids.
Oh, Lord knows. I can cry myself to sleep at night because the words of a 7-year-old cut deep.
Right.
When he doesn't have any idea what he's saying or how he's saying it, or the first time your child ever says, I hate you, and you're like, what have I done wrong? Well, no. You are a 7-year-old child trying to figure life out, and you know that is a hot button, because there is no way you hate me.
Right.
I'm amazing.
Right. So you know.
But it used to be to send me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm a very bad parent, and my son he's not grateful.
Totally.
Those sorts of things. And then you don't want anybody else to know your parental struggles either, because you're like, this is not comfortable.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like, well, my son rolled over when he was 3 weeks old. Did yours
So true.
chew a steak at 9 months?
And mine is potty trained at 6 months.
Yes! Because we're the whole comparison thing, and I think that women do it not even wanting to do it. It's just my identity is wrapped up in these things and achievements of other people, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's so important to just get back to what makes you happy. And that's honestly 150% of my happiness comes from the Lord.
Mm.
There's things that I do to wind down. There's things that I do for the whole hot button self-care or whatever that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But my happiness doesn't come from writing in a journal or listening to a babbling brook or getting a massage.
Mm.
Those things are relaxing, but my happiness comes from the Lord.
Well, I love too that I feel like this like little phrase, I am almost positive I heard you say this in your talk, and it's been a theme for me for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely.
I mean, like,
comparison is 100%. And I didn't coin that. I'm sure I heard it a million places. Yeah.
I have too, and it's like so true. That's what I love about those phrases.
We live in a world that is so comparison heavy. Not even, I mean, major corporations are working very hard to have you compare so you continue buying in the consumerism. And there's nothing wrong with consumerism. I love to shop. I like to spend money. I enjoy it. But my happiness can't come from it. Joy and happiness. There's also another thing that I think that I want people to know, and that's joy and sorrow can simultaneously exist.
Yes. I love it.
That is something that's a really hard concept for a lot of people. Like, you can be in the midst of some really hard stuff, but joy comes from your soul.
Yeah.
It comes from the Lord. And happiness is a little bit more fleeting.
Yeah.
I'm happy when I do this. I'm happy when I drink coffee. I'm happy when my house is clean. But joy comes from the Lord. And that's something that it can't be taken, even during hard times, even during sickness or the loss of a family member. Like there's a woman that I know, and she lost her nephew, and she posts about all of her grief over this last 6 or 8 months. And the thing that's so profound about it is that there are days that are so sad, but during the sad times where she's posting and journaling and sharing it online, there's all this joy intertwined, and she really wants people to know that she's living for today, and and doesn't mean that you aren't crushed by grief during certain periods, but that even in the same day you can have that mountaintop experience with the Lord, and you can still be low with him as long as you're with him.
It's phenomenal.
It's interesting. It's wonderful. I want that to be in people's hearts. Like, you can have a bad day, but ask for that joy deposit. There's another thing I want to wrap up with. And with Milo, a girlfriend of mine sent me a prayer book. And when I was pregnant with him, she said, just really pray joy into his life. Just pray joy into his heart. And I had always prayed for my kids to be safe and to be healthy and to follow the Lord, but I had never ever prayed for joy to be deposited into their lives. And Milo he's had the roughest go. It's been a very hard 2 years with his little trachea and his lungs, and he's just doing so much. He's wildly better now, but he's so happy. He is the happiest, luckiest, sweetest baby, and there is this joy deep in his soul, and I know God honored that prayer. And so that's been my prayer for Noah too, who's a little bit more logical and goofy and sharp and funny, but that joy part I've been just really praying it into his spirit, and that's changed over the last year. Like, since Milo, I've been praying this over my kids. I see a difference in them. And so I want people to be praying, like, just pray a little differently. I never thought of that before. I pray all kinds of prayers, but I never prayed for that unshakable joy to be deposited into his little soul forever. That, because nothing can take your joy away. When God gives it to you, it's there.
That is so phenomenally true. I have so experienced that in my life. It's just that underlying, peace that passes understanding.
Yeah.
And just that, sort of, okay, so this train is rolling and it's difficult and we're having challenges or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got this kind of little sidecar thing going on where, I just kind of know that it's going to be okay. And not that okay is going to look any certain way.
Yeah,
but,
and okay might still just be crappy.
And that's what I love.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that you, and this is another phrase that you said that I just love so much, and have adopted in my life, is that, and you said something to the effect of, whatever is going on right now, it's how it's supposed to be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just identify with that so much. It resonates with me so deeply, because it's like, if things were supposed to be different right now, they'd be different, know, but there's something that I'm supposed to, it's why it's
learn
called
right
present.
now.
It's a gift of the present, right? Like, it's today. And what am I supposed to, be looking for today? And what am I being exposed to and what, you know, and
asking God for that gift of like, I really ask the Lord, like, God, give me the nugget out of this. Like, what am I supposed to know? What am I supposed to learn? Like, give me the wherewithal, like, bring me around to know. And it's funny too. I think I talked a little bit about how sometimes we want so badly to fit in and we want everybody to like us. I mean, that's inherent. I think everybody wants people to like them.
Sure.
And then I heard, I think it was TD Jakes say the other day, maybe they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Maybe you know what? Maybe you focus your energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're not supposed to fit in right now.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not supposed to. And I was like, oh, ding, 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 ding. Like maybe.
It's powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be set apart and different.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, then it will be, you know, you're going to be accepted in other places.
Yeah.
So I don't know, there's all these little things that are swirling around and then we just draw them right back into what Rustic Joyful Food is. Like this is the whole mission of our business is for people to live their lives in the moment right now, today with the Lord and make some great food.
I love it. And please come back. So
I would love to.
So here's the thing. So Danielle's son's birthday is today, right now.
Yeah.
And so she has to beat feet and she's going to roll over to Chick-fil-A and get some good.
He gets some Chick-fil-A.
Right?
I packed the Rice Krispie treats with me. Oreo rice. And he tells me on the way to school, they're literally 2 9x13s in the front seat. He says, Mom, I don't think I want Oreos in the Rice Krispies anymore. And I'm like, I actually don't care.
So what you don't know, because this is a podcast, is we're sitting here picking Oreos out of Rice Krispies. I'm just kidding.
I would totally be down for that.
Right? Okay, so I have to say, though, that for real, you seem like somebody who would be down for anything.
Yeah, I am.
I love that. Like, I feel like I could call you up and be like, Danielle, I mean, I know this is not cool, but I have a resentment against somebody. Will you come and toilet paper my house?
I would do it. I would be down to ride.
I believe it. Okay, so here's what I want to say to you is you have completely brought such a refreshing presence to this room, to my life, just by sharing what you share. You have a gift in your heart that just emulates from all of you. I am honored that you would come here and share with us today. You've totally blessed me, warmed my heart, and I know that's going to be true for my listeners. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you are so
Please
welcome.
come again no, like the proverbial chicken of life, by the way. No, we need to
crank it in the oven. We need to put it in the oven and turn it up.
Right? And we need to like talk all about that.
Yes.
And we need to talk all about having people over despite like, you know, the crumbs on your table and the, you know, piles of laundry on your floor, whatever.
Yes.
We need to unpack all of that stuff. So we'll do that at some point. And I just want to say that I wish you the very best of luck with your Amazon releases coming up in September.
And we'll go on book tour, so I'll come to your city and we'll come back to the podcast and we'll talk where I'm going to be.
And we won't lose your luggage this time.
We will not. Do you know, I pack completely differently now. I'm like, I need everything in my purse. Everything in my carry-on. I never did before. I need 2 sets.
Yeah. No. And you know what? Sidebar, let me just throw in here that is so important because, and that's spoken by somebody who left their bag on the curbs at LAX. And here's what they do with your bag when you leave it curbside at LAX. They blow it up.
Yes.
For real.
Yes. So, in New York, the Port Authority, when we went back there, the guy was like, I'm really sorry, buddy. If your bag was here for more than 15 minutes, it ain't here anymore. I'm like,
sorry, my favorite underwear.
My favorite everything.
Right?
And I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever wear this, but I should bring it to New York for 4 days.
Right? Because I might need a turban and, you know, a pair of espadrilles.
Yes. Yeah. I brought like 6 pairs of shoes. Then I literally went home, and it's so funny. I actually ended up going to Rockefeller Center for a meeting at 30 Rock, and I was literally in the same outfit. And I just remember giving my book to one of the producers and saying, like, I'm really sorry. Sorry, I look so disheveled. Needless to say, I didn't book on the Today Show. And I think it might have had something to do with my appearance, but we can talk about that later.
Okay. Dude, you kill me. You kill me. You are so down to earth. I love you. Thank you for coming. All right.
Bye, guys.
Finally, Here's your bailout bag.
So, for your bailout bag, was that just thebomb.com or what? I mean, I absolutely loved my talk with her. She's such a bright light. And so go check her out on her website, rusticjoyfulfood.com. And she's on YouTube. And sidebar, I would also invite you to go onto YouTube and look up Love Actually credits. And you can see that little snippet that I'm talking about at Heathrow Airport. It brings tears to my eyes every time. I don't know what to say, right? But it's people embracing each other. It's just the sweetest thing that reminds us that love is all around. So it's definitely worth your 2 minutes. I do know that time is so valuable, especially in this day and age. So on that note, be kind, rewind. Thank you for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. Keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.